All right, it looks like we finally got some answers. The New York Jets are set to hire Darren Mougey as their next GM. All right, gang, welcome in. I'm excited to get into this. Now, as of recording this video, there's no official word from the New York Jets, but according to Josina Anderson, it does appear the Jets have made their decision on their GM. And that is going to be Darren Mougey, the assistant general manager for the Denver Broncos. I really like this hire a lot. It's not someone that was really on my radar at all, but after diving into kind of who he is and like the tree he's kind of coming from and the references that I think he's going to have, I think this is a very cool hire for the Jets, given where we are in our current team building franchise. There's a lot of relevant information that I want to get into that kind of overlaps between Denver and the New York Jets. Now, as far as his resume is concerned, he was a player for the Atlanta Falcons and the Arizona Cardinals back in 2009 and 2010. He started as a scouting intern in 2012 with the Broncos. He spent his entire career with the Broncos. In 2023, personnel and scouting assistant, then went to college and pro personnel scout to area scout to assistant, director of college scouting, director of player personnel, and then he's been the assistant general manager since 2022. Lots of things to kind of consider. Obviously, there was the trade for Russell Wilson and the impacts of cutting him and having Nathaniel Hackett there and all like the chaos that ensued from that. There was a lot of weird stuff that went on with the Russell Wilson thing over in Denver. He had his own office. There was a weird locker room dynamic. It felt like there was a very, very big rift, which could potentially be helpful with Aaron Rodgers here. Obviously, they had tried to trade for Aaron Rodgers in Denver prior to that, but the idea that maybe Rodgers is back this year or maybe he's not back and we have to deal with the cap ramifications, either way, there's a lot of relevant working knowledge here. And I think you can kind of lean on that experience to hopefully guide you through the Aaron Rodgers, next year or two, depending on the cap hit and if he decides to play or not. I think that's a really cool thing to do. Not to mention, I like the references that he has, most notably Sean Payton, who Aaron Glenn was coach under in New Orleans. Aaron Glenn was the defensive backs coach. Sean Payton, obviously the head coach, has been the head coach of the Denver Broncos for the last 2 years. And I feel like if Sean Payton is saying, hey, this is a guy you want to tap for your GM role, Aaron Glenn, let's go talk about him, I think that speaks volumes. I don't think Sean Payton's going to steer Aaron Glenn in the wrong direction after having worked with him for so many years. So I do like that. Not to mention, you look at the timeline that he has been with the Broncos, Mougey that is. He's worked with coaches, guys like John Fox, Gary Kubiak, Vance Joseph, Vic Fangio, Nathaniel Hackett, and obviously Sean Payton more recently. The Gary Kubiak one is a really interesting thought process because a lot of Jet fans really want to see Clint Kubiak wind up with the New York Jets, and Clint Kubiak had 2 stints with the Broncos during this time, obviously with Gary back in 2015, but then he was also the pass game coordinator and quarterbacks coach in 2022. So I think those little connections to Mougey, maybe that helps guide him into an era with the Jets as an OC. Either way, I like how Kubiak and some of these different offensive coordinator candidates like to utilize the running back position, and Breece Hall, obviously a major factor in that. I think that would be a really cool way to sort of navigate this ship. Now, a few things as far as concerns and pros and cons and whatnot. I do think there's some concern that the Broncos basically were not able to find a quarterback for like the longest time. Like I'm talking, it was Peyton Manning, and then like outside of that, like Jay Cutler was the last one they really had. They went through a laundry list of just horrible drafting of quarterbacks until they got to Bo Nix this year. And I am a little concerned that maybe that's more relied upon on the Sean Payton side of things than maybe on the general manager side of things or the scouting department side of things when it comes to the Broncos. Now, obviously, they did get that quarterback. The Jets are going to be looking for a quarterback. So if Mougey had a big hand in that, I think that's a major contributing factor into the Jets' future and how we potentially handle that quarterback situation. Bo Nix was not considered a first-round pick by this time. Last year, he wound up rising all the way up to the 12th overall pick. So there could be a potential for the Jets to make that type of selection in the future here. Maybe there's a guy that rises up, guys like a Jackson Dart, like the kid from Syracuse is potentially, in that discussion. And then we sort of turn our attention to like our contracts and how they have handled negotiations in Denver versus how we might have to handle negotiations with our internal players with the New York Jets. And Garrett Wilson being the forefront of that, Sauce Gardner, Breece Hall, all those guys. I'm pretty sure, I should have looked into this prior to making this video, but I'm pretty sure Courtland Sutton had to wait into the final year of his contract before he signed a contract extension. So I would venture to guess that Garrett Wilson may have something similar happen along with all the other first-round picks. I think there is a precedent that you have to be careful of setting. Even though I think Garrett Wilson should get a contract, there is a value for him not getting a contract where you could kind of see if this offense is what he wants to, commit to long-term, as well as a precedent from a GM standpoint, whereas if going into year 4, you're giving guys contracts, every single first-round pick is going to have that expectation to try and get that contract. So I do think you might see an additional year wait. I don't think we're making any major changes from like a moving key players around perspective. I think they're going to want to see how these guys operate within this new framework, and then, sort of revisit either at the trade deadline or in the future in the offseason. So overall, I don't know what year, how many years this guy is getting as far as a contract. I would think it would probably align pretty closely with Aaron Glenn. 5-year contract would make a lot of sense. Yeah, guys, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Is that someone you wanted for GM? What do you think about it? Chris Banjo, another guy that we had potentially talked about for Jets special teams coach, coming from the Broncos as well. So maybe that's the route they go for special teams coordinator. Lots of names to kind of consider and possibly pull from the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball. Curious to see where we kind of shake out here. So guys, let me know your thoughts of Darren Mougey down below in the comment section. Where do you stand on this? What are your hopes for the Jets this offseason? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.